Hi everyone, I'm Alister Benn and welcome to Expressive Photography. Welcome also to this new section of the channel, which is going to be image critique. I have enlisted my good buddy Adam Gibbs, and a few weeks ago we asked you to send in some of your photographs, and we've started to choose some and record some of these critique sessions. So what's going to follow today is the first one of these, where we've just chosen one of the images almost at random. Adam's critiqued it, I've critiqued it, and hopefully the person who sent in the photograph is going to get some insight into how we feel about it. But more broadly, I think everyone can learn from critiques. Everyone can learn from how different photographers look at images, the types of things that they are looking for, maybe specific things that they like or dislike. And I think one of the important things is to realize that image critique and opinion are not the same thing. So I really hope you're going to find this a really educational part of the channel. Moving forward, we're actually going to be doing 2 of these a week. Every Wednesday I will post one on my channel and Adam Gibbs will post one on his. He's away just now for a couple of weeks, so it's going to be a couple of weeks of just here on Expressive Photography. But from a few weeks in the future, there'll be one each channel on a Wednesday. So hopefully you can subscribe to both of our channels and gain some insight from the experience that we have at critiquing your photographs. But for now, here's the first photograph.
Well, this is a really wonderful image by Charles, and as soon as I saw this, it really stood out to me. I love the light, I love the contrasts. You'll notice that the foreground tree is quite a bit brighter than the background tree, so it really comes forward. So the contrast is just beautiful in here. I also really enjoy the reflections and how Charles has left enough room in here that you can just kind of make out the roots in the bottom here and the reflections. Now, of course, there's always ways that you can perhaps improve, or perhaps there's ways that I would like to see, or I would probably change if it were my own photograph. And that's not to say that this isn't a great photograph to start with. If this was mine, I do find that the composition feels a little heavy on the left side. You'll notice now Charles has left a lot of room around here for you to move around, but I feel that all the weight is on this side. So what I would probably do if this was mine is adjust the cropping so that it just felt a little bit more balanced. And this may or may not work, because what will happen as soon as I crop this is we'll have light areas going to the outside of the frame, which can sometimes pull your eye out of the frame. But let's just go into the develop module here and try some different cropping options here. When I saw this, to balance it out, I figured that I would want to bring this edge in here. And the reason why I'm doing this is that so these 2 trees here balance one another out. You'll notice that when we leave it as it is, it feels weighted over there, and there's not much going on over here except for this wonderful branch out here. So of course, by cropping it, we are getting rid of some of the branch that we all love. But as a balanced image, I prefer it cropped more or less as a square, like so. And what I might do is, if I was going to crop it this way, is just tone down the arm, or the root here, just a little bit, so that it's not pulling you out of the frame. What I'd also probably do is brighten up this tree just ever so slightly here and here, so that these 3 trees are the most important parts of the frame, and perhaps darken this one a little bit. You'll notice that this one's all right. It's quite a bit brighter than the background, but this one seems to get lost just a little bit, especially with this one here. So I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. I'm sure many of you will probably disagree with my cropping options, but I do feel that even though I absolutely love the image, it just felt a little bit off balance to my eye.
Well, first of all, Charles, I think the impact of this photograph is really impressive. It's one that just jumped out when we started looking at some of the images that we're going to review for this first video. I love looking at photographs from both an expressive and a compositional point of view, and understanding how the composition is impacting the way the photo is being received by myself, and understanding that there's a difference between opinion and the native attributes of the photograph. Just because I like something doesn't mean that I'm not going to find areas within it that are maybe distracting from that impact. So as many of you may know, I tend to focus an awful lot of emphasis in luminosity, contrast, color, atmosphere, and geometry. Now, obviously, color is absent from this photograph. So there are 5 things that are working within the frame here that are expressive. The luminosity, contrast, and geometry of this foreground section are striking. The beautiful, the way the light of the roots is shining out of that dark water is a really impactful thing. The contours and the curves and the shape of them, which is the geometry by my definition, creates this amazingly luminous thing in the swamp there. So I think that part of the photograph is hugely successful. The luminosity here, it may appear to be slightly incongruous. One would wonder why it was that much brighter than perhaps the top here. The top of that tree you would expect to be about the same luminosity as the bottom there. But, you know, we're allowing for some creative license here, and there's obviously been some dodging and burning to try and emphasize the luminosity of those roots. So as far as I'm concerned, kind of the reality of the luminosity that was present in the scene isn't that important to me, because there's clearly a strong artistic statement being made in this photograph. So it's very obvious to me what this photograph is about. You know, it's this amazingly incongruous sea creature or swamp creature of the luminous roots. And I think that works incredibly well. However, there are some things that I do find a little bit distracting. The first area of concern for me is this top left-hand corner. This is a 14mm lens with a 15-second exposure, and I feel that the camera has been tilted down slightly, and that may have contributed to this slight leaning effect up here. I'm not entirely sure, or it may just be a tree that's naturally leaning in. But this point of luminosity here, just those little bits of sky that are poking through the back, and in particular this edge where you can see this kind of scruffiness in that top left-hand corner there, I feel that is catching my eye on that top left-hand corner. If it wasn't there, I feel that it would be much easier to just focus in on the main course, as it were. What we can't do with photographs is put post-it notes around them saying, don't notice this, don't look at this area, and big arrows pointing to where we do want people to focus. Luminosity and contrast and geometry, which are the 3 main things that are working in this photograph, work all the way through the frame. Every pixel has luminosity and contrast, and how they interact with our eyes and brain will catch our attention. There are another couple of little spots of white light along that top edge, and each of them, I think, is contributing to a distraction where our gaze is being drawn up to the top to the top edge there. And it just, to me, it takes away some of the presence from the front. The second area I have of concern is this top right-hand corner, where ironically the opposite is true, where it's all mid-tones, but it's blurry. And I think what's happened during the 15 seconds is there's been some leaves hanging down or some tree foliage in the foreground, or there's something going on up in that top right-hand corner, which I can't quite understand and I can't quite explain. But what's happening with the frame is it's drifting off into this blurriness up in the top right-hand corner. And I think basically what we're at here is that if we were to free-form crop this, and that's not something I would normally do, But if we cropped it down a little bit to get rid of that busy top corner, the busy top edge, what we're going to find is that the photograph will get a bit more concise. So I would possibly consider removing that top edge to focus the attention down into that bottom half or the bottom 2/3 where I really feel the main root of it is. Secondly, I'm noticing, because I just have my J key activated here, there's a little bit of black clipping in some of those deeper shadow areas. And I would be somewhat tempted, I think, to stop those from being clipped. Not really for a web post. I don't think that's a massive concern. But if you were going to print this photograph, Charles, then you would end up with some muddy blacks in those deeper shadowy areas, which I really would try and avoid. So maybe a levels adjustment in Photoshop before you print it. Lift your output levels to say +2. That will stop the blacks from clipping, and it should print up an awful lot better. But realistically, above and beyond those basic comments about the top of the frame, this is a really successful photograph of an incredibly incongruous subject. It's being portrayed in a way that I feel is fresh, and I really love the artistic license that's been shown here to manipulate the luminosity and contrast to emphasize the geometry and the starkness and the bareness of the tree roots there. So yeah, I particularly love this one, and hopefully my suggestions will make sense to you. Well, thanks for watching that, and I hope you've gained some insights into the critiquing process. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up on the bottom of the channel here, and also nip over to Adam's channel and subscribe to that unless you are already doing so. On the details below this video, there is the email address that if you want one of your photographs to be considered for a critique, that is the email address to send it to. So thank you very much for watching, and again next week there'll be another one of these on a Wednesday, and then moving forward there'll be one on Adam's channel and one on mine. So thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you on Sunday for some more expressive photography. Bye for now.